lead us off here? I've been itching to get behind the mic again. We're going to go with Maryland. They're a repeat offender here on this list. I wrote some content out on Twitter that blew up, if you were paying attention, upsets to watch. And I did 2 different tweets while I was gone in Florida. And the first one blew up for all the wrong reasons. I could have sworn, guys, that the Twitter sphere was going to hate me for picking Maryland to beat USC in October. I believe it's October 19th. USC has to come to College Park. Instead, that tweet got praised or picked apart for the other 3 games in it. But no one really paid attention to this one, which I thought was hilarious. Maryland has an over-under of 6.5. At least when I picked them, it did. Maybe when you're listening to this podcast, the line has moved. If it's gone up, I think there are some smart bettors hitting the market because Maryland, while they've lost to Leah Tungavailoa, have gained a rising star in MJ Morris at quarterback coming over from NC State, right? Played in 4 games last year when Brendan Armstrong wasn't getting the job done, then said, you know what, I've kind of proven what I want to do. I'm going to take my red shirt, not going to play anymore. Transfers up to College Park, and now he is the face of this Maryland offense. The defense is going to be really fun. They've got Roman Himby running the ball, some fun weapons, maybe some unproven weapons, but some fun weapons nonetheless outside. And guys, I don't think this schedule is all that tough. UConn, Michigan State, at Virginia, Villanova, at Indiana are the first 5 games. There's a real good shot that Maryland is 5-0 heading into their first bye week. They've got Northwestern, USC, at Minnesota, and then it gets tough down the stretch at Oregon, Rutgers, Iowa, and at Penn State. So I'm not taking Maryland to win the conference or go to the playoff or anything like that, but you're giving me 6.5 as the over-under. I think Maryland can easily get to 8 wins this season, and if something special happens, that's just the cherry on top.
I love the pick, and we talked about Mike Loxley on the Hot Seat show. I think it was a few weeks back. And I only mentioned his name just because I was wanting to get, just a temperature check, right? And we landed on absolutely not. He's not on the hot seat. And he's going to be someone that benefits the most from realignment of the divisions and scrapping of divisions in the Big Ten because they no longer have to play Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, and maybe a Michigan State that's good certain years or a Rutgers that's good certain years. They don't have to play in arguably one of the toughest divisions in college football every single year anymore. It's going to be huge for Maryland as they get to diversify that schedule a little bit. It starts this year, and I think, they've got the talent. They've been building quietly a recruiting monster there in that region. I think it's hard to argue that anyone is better at recruiting than them in that particular region right now. So, why not Maryland to make a big step up this year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's pretty well documented my history with Maryland from last year. And while I certainly don't feel scorned like I did from Louisville that one time, and I don't want to talk about it too much, but I certainly don't have Louisville feelings towards Maryland. For me, it's definitely a prove it type of thing. I think for me, I have to look at it and say, okay, well, last year there were a lot of winnable games on that schedule where you say like, oh, Maryland's probably the better team, and if Talia does his thing, then whatever. And it didn't happen, right? It didn't happen for them last year. They lost a bunch of games that don't feel like they really had any business losing. For me this year, it's going to have to be something about game day prep and just showing up to the games that they have to show up to, right? It seems to be, something with Maryland. They just get snake bit at certain times. Now, the schedule sets up real nice. Like, you were talking, obviously no Michigan, no Ohio State. You look at kind of what they have to deal with. Yes, they do have to go to Penn State at the end of the year. Yes, they do have to go to Autzen, make that trip across the country. But outside of that, it's pretty favorable. They get to play USC at home. And so, it's probably going to end up being a more favorable schedule and hopefully better results for Maryland. The hope for me, if you're looking to hit this over with Maryland, is with that soft open. Right, I think you got a real chance to build some momentum at the beginning of that schedule, and you get UConn, Michigan State, Virginia, Villanova, Indiana, a bye week, Northwestern. You could be, it's feasible to say you could be 6-0, bowl eligible, and probably ranked pretty good when you go play USC. So maybe we're not even really looking at that game as an upset when the time comes because we're looking at Maryland saying, "Hey, you're a pretty dang good team there, Terps." And so, I think that. Ultimately with Maryland, yes, the quarterback transfer, you're going to have to figure out if he can raise his play to a consistent level that we just didn't see out of Talia. He had some real bright flashes, but just didn't always show up the way you wanted him to. Made some pretty dumb decisions with the football at times. But, I do like him coming back as the running back. He's a 1,000-yard rusher a couple years ago. Didn't look at his numbers from this year, but really solid running back and can certainly get it done. Good blend of power and speed. So, if they can kind of lean on the run game, maybe get some good, consistency out of the quarterback spot, they should be able to score enough points to win a bunch of these games.
They need to win in October, and that's, I think, what I'm most concerned about. That they started 5-0 last year and then lost 4 straight. Like you mentioned, Garrett, Tagovailoa just has a bad habit of throwing picks to the wrong team at the worst possible moment. Yeah. They lost by 7 to Michigan. I mean, they had the Wolverines on the ropes late. They just couldn't cash it in. So, maybe a shame on me if Locksley pulls the wool over my eyes again this season. But boy, with that schedule being as soft as it is, and I'm higher on Virginia, I'm higher on Indiana than most, although, we might talk about the Hoosiers a little bit later on in this show. But Maryland should win those games rather comfortably.
Yeah, totally agree. And look out for their defense as well. We normally know them for their offense, but the front 7 could be really scary this year.
Gracious him. How